Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for your patience today. Yes, it's good afternoon, not good morning. As you know, the president of Nigeria visited our shores last weekend, and we hosted a joint session of parliament where the heads of the OECS governments were involved. After that sitting, the OECS heads of government met with the Nigerian president, and the Prime Minister is here today to brief you on the results of that meeting. Prime Minister? We have mics,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Sorry for the late start of this press briefing. We were at the police academy welcoming 80 new police recruits, 15 people from Slasper, and some training for Bordelais, and the city police. So accept my apologies for this late start. I'll read a statement on the visit of the Nigerian president to St. Lucia last week. St. Lucia had the honor of hosting the heads of government of the OECS for a high-level meeting with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This was not just a ceremonial visit. It was a productive working session that led to clear practical outcomes. It also marked a significant step forward in strengthening South-South cooperation between Africa and the Caribbean, two regions with shared histories and aligned development goals. President Tinubu made several direct offers to the region: full tuition scholarships for OECS students to pursue higher education in Nigeria, deployment of Nigerian professionals across sectors such as health, education, and engineering for the Nigerian Technical Aid Corps, visa waivers for OECS nationals with diplomatic and official passports with encouragement for reciprocal arrangements, formal diplomatic relations between Nigeria and St. Lucia with other OECS member states expected to follow. A joint diplomatic mission is also under discussion. A proposal to establish a Nigeria-OECS Joint Commission to guide and expand this new partnership. Collaboration in education, maritime training, scientific research, and climate adaptation. In response, the OECS heads welcomed Nigeria's proposals and highlighted areas of particular interest: reviving the Nigeria-OECS medical partnership to bring competent doctors and nurses to the region, expanding youth exchanges, including training in robotics, software, and innovation, deepening culture and creative sector collaboration with a focus on export-ready Afro-Caribbean goods, improving air and maritime connectivity, including renewed discussions on the Black Star Line concept and direct air links via Nigerian carriers, targeted tourism marketing to Nigeria's growing middle class, joint trade and investment promotion, including business forums and matchmaking between OECS entrepreneurs and Nigerian investors. Both sides agreed to appoint lead representatives and technical working groups to follow through on this agenda. This historic meeting between the OECS heads of government and the President of Nigeria underscores the value of South-South collaboration, not an abstract ideal, but as a practical tool for solving problems, building capacity, and unlocking opportunity. The ties between Africa and the Caribbean are not only historic, they are strategic. This is the end of the statement. Take any questions on the statement or any other questions that you may have.
Yeah, my first question would be, given what you spoke of on the relations with the OECS, are we expected to see an OECS ambassadorial representative to Nigeria, or will St. Lucia be appointing an ambassador to Nigeria on its own?
Well, as you know, the question of individual ambassadors, is something that we have to look very closely, particularly in terms of costs. But there is talk, as I said, of a joint diplomatic engagement between the OECS and Nigeria. a joint commission. So something is work in progress, but we have to consider all options. But it may be preferable if we have one joint mission and an ambassador for the OECS. But it's work in progress.
Okay, so two other questions for me, and I hope the response is not going to be irrelevant detail, as was said in the previous slide by another minister. I'm curious as to
the cost.
The cost to St. Lucia. Oh, okay. What did this trip cost St. Lucia? And secondly, what was the role of Ambassador Gilbert Chuguri in the Nigerian president's visit to St. Lucia?
Sure. The first one is not a secret. The Nigerians paid for the transportation, they paid for the accommodation, they paid for the transportation, all the transportation for the Nigerian delegation and the security detail they paid for. They paid for the accommodation of their security detail. They paid for their own accommodation in all entire hotels. What the national government paid for is for the local arrangements, the entertainment, the hospitality we offer to them, and a full amount. I will give you a full amount. The accounting is still going on, but I can assure you that the bulk of the expenses for that visit was paid by the Nigerian delegation itself. But I'm going to make public, as soon as the accounting is over, what it costs us in the government.
And the second part of the question, the role of Ambassador Gilbert Chuguri.
Ambassador Chuguri is our ambassador to UNESCO. He's ambassador to the Holy See, and he's extremely close friend of the President of Nigeria. So he actually visited as a guest with the President on that trip. He's an extremely close friend to the President of Nigeria.
The closure of the airport.
Can you use the mic, please?
I want to say the airport wasn't closed. The airport was temporarily, operations temporarily ceased for a few hours. It wasn't closed. It was never closed.
How much did that cost?
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. These questions, I encourage these questions, but these politicians that make these things put it at the top of the thing is basically what they call sour grapes. That happens all the time. When heads of state visit, when President Maduro visited, you suspend operations. Imagine from the time of Alexander Haig, and I'm sure Sheffield, you may not be born. Alexander Haig, and if you ask Peter Josie about him, he'll tell you. Alexander Haig was a Secretary of State. When he came, airport operations was suspended. I don't know why we are trying our best to make an issue with normal protocol. It's the head of state. There are countries where anytime the head of state travels, he travels with a full security entourage, roads are stopped, happens overseas. That doesn't happen in St. Lucia, at least not when I am Prime Minister, but it happens all the time. So I think as a country, we should stop creating these unnecessary issues, which can lead into other issues, because it makes people believe that they are being unfed. It makes people believe that they are being treated differently. That's not true. We must not. We are a state that has to have protocols for heads of state. All over the world, when President Trump is traveling, the entire airspace is closed. The airspace. We have just asked for a few hours to allow the presidential jet to land, and we're making a story of that. Cannot be right. It can't be right, Sheffield. And I don't think any politicians should do that. You think if the government had changed and the head of state was coming, you don't think that they would have done the same thing? These are the protocol arrangements that have been made for heads of state, for heads of government. These are protocol arrangements. Happens all over the world. When the president of Guyana came, we had to make certain arrangements on the airport. For the airport when the president of Guyana came. Why are we so tense about Nigeria? Why are we making Nigeria sound as if it's a country? Why are we doing that to ourselves? Why?
I don't think it's Nigeria no. Most people don't know these protocols.
Okay, well, I guess it's our fault.
It's always good to have disclosure on this matter.
Yes, I appreciate it, but I'm saying to you, that's normal processes for head of state. It's like heads of state getting laissez-passer in traffic. Happens everywhere. St. Vincent doesn't happen. Grenada, doesn't happen in St. Lucia because of the way run my life. You understand? But it happens everywhere. Trinidad, Jamaica, heads of state have laissez-passer. I mean, it's not when the Prime Minister of Trinidad goes to work. In fact, she goes on a helicopter sometimes. All heads of state. I mean, so we mustn't use St. Lucia as the best practice when it comes to movements of head of state. But thanks to your question, I hope I clarified it. You can clarify it in your answer.
Sure. Yeah. Good afternoon. Last evening, me and the President of Barbados,
Prime Minister of Barbados.
Sorry, Prime Minister of Barbados made a call for greater information management within the region, especially with a view of misinformation and disinformation. To localize the issue, you have on many occasions called for more factual reporting, more factual information being disseminated. What are your thoughts on the Prime Minister's statement that the region needs to create a hub where factual information about its foreign policy and so on is disseminated?
I agree. In fact, I want to make it clear that the news, the YouTube video that's going on about me and President Trump, this is absolutely false. It's a synthetic thing. I've never had any connections with President Trump. I've never spoken to President Trump. The closest I've reached to President Trump is to speaking to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So this is completely false. Just want to tell you, it's completely fake news. Talking about fake news and falsities, and you made the point, John, that I've asked all the time to lift the debate, raise the debate. You heard the leader of the opposition in Parliament on Thursday proclaim in the sternest of voices that St. Lucia and the OECS had lost their Schengen visa. This is a serious, serious statement. This is a serious statement coming from anybody, and the leader of the opposition in particular was the former Prime Minister, only to be told that's completely false. Completely. That never happened. Completely false. But it is on the record of the Parliament as said by a leader of the opposition. These are the kind of things that we must condemn. These are the things that create unnecessary issues. You see, John, St. Lucia doesn't belong to any politician, you know. It belongs to the people of St. Lucia. And we know that we are in the political season, and the best people will try to contend to wrest the political power. But the country will remain. The country will remain after the elections when they are held next year. The country will remain. And we must always understand that in all our utterances, St. Lucia must come first. So I really hope that we have a certain level of fact, and the influencers or those that think they influence public opinion should basically rethink the idea that you have to throw the baby away with the bathwater, or you have to burn the house to kill a rat. The country remains after elections.
So what date next year we have elections?
Elections will be held before 3 months after the 26th of July.
Okay. So my first question to you will be, Trump's tariffs coming into effect this week. How will they affect the island's measures to bring down the prices and so on?
To bring down the prices?
Yeah, because you said.
Well, we continue to do our share. Last week in Parliament, we removed VAT on about 70 items. VAT was removed on 70 items. That would cause an immediate decrease in the price of these goods to the consumer. Note what I said, the price and not the cost. We do not determine the cost, we determine the price. The 12.5% that we moved on these 70 items, effective, you think it will come into play before that, but from the 1st of August, the Senate will pass a resolution tomorrow, hopefully. The cost may not change, we can't control the cost, but the price for the consumer will go down by 12.5%. So we hope that that will assist if the tariffs come into play.
My second question would be the unauthorized visit by the leader of the opposition to Central. What have you to say on that, sir?
Nothing. The leader of the opposition is a man. Last time I saw him, he was a grown man. And if he determines that he should go to the hospital unannounced and he's allowed to do it, I have absolutely. You see, I'm a very important thing to do. You know, I don't get involved in these things. This is I determined to divert me. I'm going to argument the leader of the opposition, going to build the hospital. That's progressing, and that's fine. And when the hospital is complete, supporters of the Nigeria-OECS party will be there as patients, and we'll invite them. I say I'm not really concerned about the leader of the opposition going to the hospital wherever he wants. He can go wherever he wants. He's a free person.
But he would have seen some of the progress you saw.
I hope he saw.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, we heard the Nigerian president make a strong statement concerning climate change, and you are the head of the on that committee or that. How much do you think it strengthens the case of the lesser developed islands, and seeing that Africa itself goes through a lot of weather and climate changes? How much of a case you see it is now? Putting this forward on the global stage.
In fact, last week I was in Belize at the 5Cs conference, where I was a guest speaker at the 5Cs conference, and the idea of climate change. And I'm on record as saying that I think one of the most serious threats to us in the region is climate change. I made that statement and I stand by it. We have to, and this is why we took a small step, a very small step, but significant, when we created the Sovereign Wealth Fund to show the developing world that St. Lucia has taken a step to see about its own adaptation for climate factors. We also joined CAF, Caribbean Development Bank, a CAF, which is a body that will assist us instantly if we have a catastrophe because of climate change. So we've taken our own steps. We also going into discussions for a new debt arrangement. You understand? Where we try to use our natural assets to get concessionary loans. So we're doing it at different levels to create a situation where the country will not be completely devastated. But I can tell you, it frightens me every day to believe that I can get up one morning and in half an hour the entire country is gone. It's a frightening experience, and it's one thing that I lose sleep as Prime Minister is that.
But you think the link with Africa will strengthen?
Africa can share some experiences, but the developed world generally is not meeting its obligations as far as financing is concerned for climate adaptation or mitigation. The developing world itself, we make all kinds of promises at COP. These promises come. There was a loss and damage fund, it has not been funded as it's supposed to be. We make all these commitments, and the developed world, we are not the largest emitters. We are those who suffer the most. But the developed world does not meet its obligations. Very sad, but that's a feature of our small size.
Prime Minister, just one question to digress a bit. While you were in Brazil, did the president make a commitment to offer scholarships to St.
In Belize, the Prime Minister of Belize has committed St. Lucia to a few university scholarships.
My question, Prime Minister, I came across a report on the weekend where some of the Caribbean nations involved in CBI are proposing a 30-day residency requirement, as well as there's a proposal for a regional regulatory authority on CBI. Could you just speak to that?
Yes, I can speak to it. The regional regulatory authority is a creature of the memorandum of understanding that the CBI countries signed. That is the creature. What it wants, what it seeks to do, it seeks to have a sort of monitoring arrangement and uniform legislation. It's work in progress for all the islands if CIP programs. And residency the residency requirements are one of the proposals that have come forward. But what you seek to do is you seek to have a transparent, accountable CIP program where all the islands subscribe to a certain set of rules, a certain set of procedure, a certain set of due diligence, so that our programs can be transparent and they can meet international standards. That is the goal. So all the islands to have a transparent, with a high level of due diligence. And I must tell you that many of the things that have been asked for, St. Lucia has been doing it. And that is something that we have forgotten. St. Lucia always had a statutory board, a separate board running the CIP program. Many islands have just started doing that. So, I mean, sometimes we are very critical on ourselves as a people, and that's necessary. But I can tell you, a lot of things that have been called for by the regional authority, St. Lucia has been doing it. And St. Lucia will continue, St. Lucia will strengthen, and St. Lucia will work with its partners to ensure that our program is sustainable, is transparent, and it assists the people of the country.
Okay, just want to move to the issue of crime. You just mentioned that you just came back from a recruitment of police officers and what have you. Just speak to what we've seen in recent days with the level of crime we've witnessed and violent crime and the homicides, especially of young men. We're hearing on the streets of reprisals and gang violence or what have you. Just speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Tony. Very concerned. I condemn all acts of violence. I condemn the fact that we have been losing young lives, productive lives. I have absolutely no room for criminal behavior. I think criminality, that there's no excuse for criminality. The police force have been given the full powers to follow the law, to cause a decrease in the level of criminality that has exploded over the last 2 weeks. The government's role is not to interfere in the operations of the police force, but to give the police all the resources that are available within our sphere of fiscal need. All what the police need, we've given them. Our history of police resources is clear. We continue to do it. But I want to say to the police force to use all legal means, observing the rights of individuals, to ensure that these criminalities, by a few individuals, the majority of people in St. Lucia are law-abiding people, by a few people, these criminals, who use all kinds of excuses to cause crime and to inflict harm on their fellow brother, in some cases sister. The people who commit crime against each other are guys who came from the same neighborhood. They went to the same schools. They play in the same football matches. I know, I've seen them play in the same field. What would cause you to go to school with somebody, to know his mother, to know his sister, and all in a sudden, because you're in a gang, to pull a gun and shoot him in his head? I cannot condone that. There's no excuse. The government is doing whatever we can do. We have a level of social intervention. We're not only saying that we enforce the law, we have social interventions, a number of social interventions. Only this week, we employed a member of the police force who is qualified, who did his PhD in crime prevention and criminology. We've attached him to the Ministry of Crime Prevention to coordinate with the minister all the social interventions we've been making as far as crime, as far as violence in violence interruption is concerned. We work with all bodies. The SSDF is working with a number of organizations. We just put in some money that we are criticized for into the Ubuntu movement as far as crime suppression is concerned. But we have a zero tolerance to this criminality. We will not condone it, and there can be no excuse for criminality. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Mr.
It's afternoon. Yeah, that's that kind of thing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I'm pleased to offer you a few updates
on our health, the reform of our health system. Last week is it last week or week before?
What was that?
The formation.
Last week before, the Friday.
Week before.
Week before.
I want to be very. I want to be
2
certain.
Fridays ago.
Yes. All right, let me go again. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I am pleased to offer you a few updates on our health reform initiatives and work which is ongoing in the health sector. 2 weeks ago, we conducted a contract signing activity or ceremony which will see the rehabilitation of the Fond-Asson and Babuno wellness centers, both in the Babuno constituency, and we know that the work which has started will improve the services at both wellness centers. For a long time, the residents of Fond-Asson and the professionals at the Fond-Asson Wellness Center, also the clients, have complained about the challenges which the wellness center pose. We had some very serious problems there, and work has started to rehabilitate this wellness center. When it is completed, we are going to see a fully rehabilitated wellness center with improved services to the people of Fond-Asson and the people of Babuno in general. The Babuno Wellness Center is also being completely rehabilitated, and this is all being done with the OECS Regional Health Project and also the HSSP, and it's being conducted by our unit, which is headed by Mrs. Janet Hughes with the assistance of the World Bank, and we are hoping that this work will assist with the continued improvement of health services. We know that the nurses, the health aides and so on look forward to the completion of that work. This is in addition to work which will be done at the Grace Wellness Center in Vieux North. We will have the complete rehabilitation of this wellness center. Also Canries, Vanna, among others, Monrepo and so on. We will update you as the works continue in some cases and when the works are about to begin in others. The expansion of the Groside Polyclinic, which we have spoken about before, I want to tell you that the expansion works have accelerated, and we are hoping that the works will be completed very soon, so that we can introduce 24-hour services at the GIPC as we know it. We have renamed it the Dr. Martin Didier Polyclinic, and a ceremony for the renaming of the polyclinic will take place as soon as the rehabilitation works have been completed. I'm also very pleased to tell you that the $3 million debt which we owed to the University Hospital of Martinique, as you know, we've reported before that that debt has been paid, and we have put in place new procedures and so on to ensure that we do not accumulate that kind of debt with the University Hospital and with other institutions. As you know, our Prime Minister has committed our government to clearing the debts, or to paying as many of our debts, especially to our local suppliers, suppliers of services, suppliers of pharmaceuticals, and so on, to pay those debts. And those debts are being paid. We are doing very well with those, but we are very happy about the debts that we have paid to the University Hospital of Martinique. I want to tell you that we have also instituted new procedures at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, and I want to compliment the management and the team at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, Dr. Greaves and his team, because a number of processes have been improved in terms of procuring pharmaceuticals in particular. We've had some serious problems with that, and the team has reported that tremendous progress has been made in that regard. I wish to thank the professionals, the doctors and all the professionals at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex for the improvements that they continue to make to ensure that our people get the best possible care. For the St. Jude Hospital, commissioning activities are taking place. As you know, construction is almost complete, and we are working with the teams, the various teams, to ensure that there's going to be a smooth transition of the services from the stadium to the OJ site, and also to ensure that the new equipment which is already being procured is tested and so on. So these activities, I must tell you, are happening. The meetings are taking place with various professionals, and we are pleased with the progress. We are hoping that as soon as the buildings are given over to the ministry, to the government, then we will transition very, very smoothly. I want to also update you on the new services we have launched in breast cancer screening. You were told before, the people of St. Lucia were told that we installed 2 new mammography machines, one at the St. Jude Hospital and the other at the Owen King EU Hospital. I want to say to you that services started on the 23rd of June 2025 at the St. Jude Hospital and also at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, OKEU Hospital. The services in mammography started on July 2nd. I will give you a further update in the next 2 weeks in terms of how many women have benefited from the specialized services with our 3D mammography machine. But we are very pleased and very happy that we are able to offer this brand new service with a 3D machine to the women and to the people of St. Lucia. And I'm also very happy that we are receiving reports that a number of nursing students are very excited about the $2,500 that the Prime Minister put in the budget for the first and second year nursing students, the $5,000 for the third year students, and the $10,000 for the fourth year students. We know that the cost of training for our nurses is expensive. It's pressure for the families, and we are hoping that this will encourage even more young St. Lucians to see nursing as an opportunity, not only to benefit themselves in terms of gaining some a profession, but also to assist the country and to help us with our retention program. We are trying very hard, not only with this injection into the training of nurses, but we are working on other programs which will hopefully cause more of our nurses to remain right here in St. Lucia. I wish to thank you and ask whether there are any questions you may want to pose at this time before I run back to the cabinet.
Just some clarification, the last point you made about the nurses and retention of the nurses. I know in the past one of the issues for some of the nurses were being on contract, not being on full salary, so to speak, and every time they go to the treasury, late payments or what have you. What is the government doing to rectify that situation as a means of retaining those nurses and not having them being moved to other countries and staying in St. Lucia?
Okay, well, in the 2025-2026 budget, the Prime Minister, as one of our new policies, the Prime Minister did announce that nurses and other public servants within a particular grade who have worked for 2 years, their positions will be made permanent. So that is going to positively impact our nurses. We know that problem has been there for a while, and we are seeking to address this problem.
Any other questions?
Okay, I'll be back very often because the cabinet is late today and we've started. But thanks very much. I appreciate it. Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's afternoon.
Well past lunchtime.
That's what you have in the coffee.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Pleasant afternoon to you. I am here this afternoon to speak on maybe 2 items. Something which happened in my constituency on Friday, as well as what is happening between the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Finance as it relates to the removal of VAT on approximately 70 line items and how that will be implemented. So if we start with the removal of VAT on some of the basic items, we have the removal of VAT, and then we have the extension of the building material, and the removal of VAT as well. So we have about 3 things taking place. 3 things. The first one is the removal of the service charge on price control items. We had this previously, maybe 2 years ago. We had it as there was a stint on that, and we had placed the service charge back. But now, based on what is happening internationally, when we see the rise in the price of goods as a result of the tariff imposed by the US, and because of the wars that continue, as a government, the cabinet felt it was important that we take measures to contain the rise in prices. You may recall that the cabinet set up a task force to look specifically at tariff. We continue to work. I need to tell you that. Our next meeting is on the 15th. We saw from that the Ministry of Agriculture preparing a plan of action in terms of ensuring our food security. That's going on well. The cabinet has approved that. And we have the Ministry of Finance working on a sectoral analysis to see how the tariff could impact other parts, other segments of the economy. That we expect to receive on the 15th so that we can think about it and see what recommendations we are making to the cabinet. So, from there, we had the action that we started taking as a government. First was to remove the 6% service charge on the price control items. That came into effect on the 1st of June. And those of you who listened to my presentation in the Parliament last week, there are certain items that we have itemized where we have seen the evidence of a reduction in the price of these items on the supermarket shelf. The second part is the removal of VAT on the 70 items. Originally, there was an announcement for the 1st of July, but we had to push it back, if you really heard the Prime Minister's presentation, to the 1st of August. And the reason why we had to push it back, because we are part of CARICOM, there's a common external tariff, and we had to, the Minister for Foreign Affairs had to present that listing and a request to QUOTED, which is the committee responsible for trade in CARICOM. So we had to wait on their response, and we also had to give the business community some time as well so that they make their preparation in the system to implement. So that is why we have an implementation date of the 1st of August. In the meantime, at our ministry, which is the Consumer Affairs Department, we have our team on the ground getting baseline data, and also we have developed a strategy as to how we are going to monitor with staff of the ministry as well as members of the National Consumers Association. I want to take this moment as well to remind the public that so far we've had significant collaboration and cooperation with the private sector. We hope that this is going to continue, but we also want the public to assist us in terms of the monitoring. So you are the one shopping every day. We have limited staff to do that, but we want you as John Public to be conscious of what is happening on the ground. There is a removal of the VAT on 70 or so items, which is going to be listed, published. You'll be reminded of that. So you have a responsibility as well to assist us. There is a hotline at the Consumer Affairs Department. I don't have it with me now, but please ensure that you use that hotline to inform us of what you observe. Work with us as we continue to monitor what is happening, but that's your government, ensuring that we do all within our power to contain the price of goods. And that is foodstuff. That's what the 70 is foodstuff. But the cabinet as well went further to extend a concession that we had where we removed VAT on building material, galvanized plywood, steel, and so on. And we've taken a decision as well to extend up to sometime, I think, May next year, the removal of VAT on this building material. Again, that is your government ensuring that we assist John Public, especially the domestic sectors, the households, to try to build their homes, try to repair their homes. You're smiling. Are you happy? Yes. Are you one of the persons who are benefiting?
I suppose,
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. As long as you go to the supermarket, you're benefiting.
What's the latest on MSME?
The latest on MSME, we have, as I reported earlier, that we are now focusing on our bakers as well as our cooperatives. So I know tomorrow, God willing, I'm meeting with the cooperative sector to put a plan in place to ensure that they understand what we are offering them. As you know, we've increased the threshold from the 25 to 50, both for the bakers and for the cooperative sector. So we are sitting with them to ensure that, and that's non-financial cooperative, fishers, farmers, benefit from the MSME. It's our responsibility to bring the sector up to a different level. The cooperative sector in particular, and bakers. We'll be trying to touch at least 1 or 2 bakeries in every constituency. And the support we're going to give them, apart from training, is to see how we can get new equipment for the baking sector and to cause them to try to introduce some new products on the market.
Minister, can you tell us more about your event on Friday?
Okay. In Supra on Friday, we had 2 events. We had 2 events in one, and that was the recognition, the closure, the completion of what we call our solarized project for Supra, and that is a Fisher cooperative, and they benefited from that project, where we approach Jeff, and so Jeff and the Ministry of Commerce work together and the Ministry of Agriculture work together to provide solar panels for the Fisher cooperative. This has had significant positive implications for them. The energy cost, so far has identified a savings of about $40,000 annually for the Fisher cooperative. And we have taken the decision that this savings, we're going to put it together to try to give a small pension to our retired fishers. And those of you who were there, the Prime Minister made a very generous statement where he indicated that as a government, we will present or give a one-time donation of $350,000 to the fishers, not only to Sufre, but to the fishers for that pension plan. So now the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is going to partner with the cooperative department in my ministry to ensure that the fisher cooperatives put things in place so that the retired fishers have a benefit. I think this is extremely important for us because those of you who know our fishers, they have not made provision for the retirement, and a lot of our fishers are aged and we need to make provision for them. They have served us well, and now we have to see how best we can assist them. So that was the first part of the program. The second part of the program was, again, the Honorable Prime Minister distributed some 47 checks to maybe a few fishers, but the bulk of it were what you call our Sufre boat boys, persons who lost their boats and tools and so on during Hurricane Beryl. You may recall that the Prime Minister made the first donation I think it was November last year, where about 26 fishers, registered fishers, received over $400,000 in grant funding from the government to support them, to get them to replace their vessels and the engines. And now, this time around, about 47 of them got about $220,000 in grant funding to assist them. And I think that's extremely important for us, especially, and the boat boys, they service the tourism industry. They're not in the fishing industry, in the tourism industry. And that was important for us to give them that support so that they can get back their dinghies again and then to earn their livelihood. So I'm extremely grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister for that.
Madam Minister, on a lighter note, let's speak about the pageant in your
The lighter note. I was not a contestant. Well, we had, we had Carnival, Soufrière, we had the pageant, the Queen contestants. We had 6 beautiful ladies. They gave a good account from all the comments I received. It was a successful event. Again, I want to take the moment to thank Mr. Methodius Roch-Clessin and his team in CIMO for the work that they do in terms of ensuring that we have these quality events every year. The next step for CIMO is the Soufrière Carnival, and that is dated for Sunday the 27th. So again, I'm taking that moment to invite all of St. Lucia to Soufrière Carnival. Come and enjoy Sulphur City.
Just one last question quickly, Madam Minister. We've spoken before of the coconut vendors.
Yes.
I wouldn't say the plight of them, but
the plight.
The progress. There's the location for them. We still see some of them, are still on the side of the roads, especially along the highways. They will stock some type of probably a coconut association or some kind of body to grouping that they will follow. Is there any progress in that field for now?
Well, I cannot say that I know of the progress, but you are correct that there is an association. There was efforts to put an association together, and there is a grouping for coconut growers, coconut vendors. In terms of where it's at, in terms of improving the sanitary conditions and hygiene, and I think that's where you're going, in terms of in that industry. Maybe what I'll do is to report on it the next time I have a chat with you. I will do my research, see where they are, and come back to tell John Public.
Yeah. And just quickly, I know this might take a little more time, but since you're in your constituency, you're upgrading Soufrière and picking up the community, what would be the position with the coconut factory? I know it's a long study, but it has been of use to Soufrière, and not just Soufrière, to the community.
Yeah.
And people still, have a concern that why would an institution or facility of that worth just be there,
well, the Soufrière copra factory, you're correct, it was a very significant institution in Soufrière. It employed a lot of people, and somehow it has gotten itself where it has been. What I can tell you is that we're working on it. I will unveil the plans for that area sometime soon, God willing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah?
Just a final question, with the removal of VAT, some progress, right? About how much revenue will the government forego?
I think I gave a figure annually of just 5-point-something million, it was 5.4, I think it was, based on the estimated exercise that was done by the Ministry of Finance. That's what we expect, and that's not the building material part, just the food part in terms of what we assume based on figures that we've had. But what we will do is to come back to tell the general public what the actual figures are. So far, we estimate it to be about 5.4 million annually. Yeah.
Okay, Madam Minister, the tariffs will be taken effect this week, right?
Well, I don't know. Mr. Trump has been changing dates, so I don't know. Yes, but
But
what?
anyway, but how will it render our prices?
Was that?
How will it really affect our prices?
Oh, it can have significant implication for us if it is implemented. I think when I reported earlier, there were two issues for us. Apart from just the basic tariff on, I think they've changed it to like a 10% tariff on everything. So everything is going to go up if it's implemented fully. And there was also, which was even more frightening for us, was a particular charge on small vessels that were built in China. And I think based on negotiations through CARICOM, this threat has been removed. So the only thing left for us is this tariff is going to impact the price of goods coming in, and it's also going to impact our exports going out. So we have to monitor. We are doing a lot of work in terms of sourcing alternative markets. I think that's an issue that we had already started, but now we are intensifying our efforts to look at other areas. Canada, for certain things. We are looking as back as Australia for our stimulus, different places where we're looking at alternative markets.
So we welcome our final speaker, Honorable Jeremiah Norbert, Minister for Crime Prevention, Minister for Home Affairs, Crime Prevention, and Persons with Disabilities.
So you almost see today, paparazzi, you will ask.
So we have limited time.
Yes.
So Minister will be able.
So you almost see. Let me hear. My ties. You have no questions for me? I can leave.
No,
I tell you, I'm at you almost see this morning.
Okay.
This afternoon.
Okay, so the investigation with Officer Tyson, could you please give us where are we now with the results?
Matter is still under investigation. I spoke to Commissioner of Police. We're not in a position to speak exclusively about the matter now. All I can tell you is that the matter is still currently under investigation.
Speaking to the Commissioner, have you received an update from the Commissioner a few weeks ago? Not a few weeks, a few months actually. The Commissioner did indicate to members of the press that he had in his possession the file concerning the sexual allegations with regard to a senior police officer, and that those files were being passed on to the DPP. That's been several months, like I said. Any indication where we are with that case right now?
Well, truth be told, these files do not come to the ministers. If the commissioner is in possession of the file, there's a channel through which these things flow, and he would bring it to the DPP. I'm not in a position to tell you whether or not he has. That question would have to be directed to commissioner, because these files usually don't come. But not usually, they should not be coming to ministers. So I'm not in a position to speak about whether or not, or what is the current status of the file, whether the DPP is in receipt of the files. I don't know. These questions would have to be directed to the relevant authorities given the situation.
And could you speak to what we've been seeing happening in the last few days with regards to crime, the gun violence that we've witnessed, several homicides? Could you just speak to that?
All right. So over the course of over the past few days, we would have recorded quite a few homicides, albeit at a time where we almost we're almost getting back to a place where we could almost call normal, where people started feeling safe again. And I think that has really run shockwaves through this country. However, what I can tell you, all of these incidents or these homicides were gun-related. And I think something that is very worrisome is, whereas once upon a time, when we had a series of homicides, they were concentrated in one location. Right now, we have a situation whereby the geographical spread of these homicides, there is no geographical boundaries. You would see in Soufrière, you look at in Dennery, you look at in Castries. And what this does, it really puts some pressure and some strain on the already limited resources of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. And we have an issue here that is systemic, and I think I will just be frank and bold about it. Prime Minister this morning in his address when he spoke to the incoming recruits, he said that we do not produce guns in St. Lucia. The guns do not go by themselves on flights, yet still they get into our country. How do they get there? I can tell you that we have credible information, and we are going to be dealing with it. We are going to do everything within our power to dismantle, because there's a lot of what we've realized now is a situation where we have organized crime. Organized crime where we have people from different stratas of society involved in it. And it has become a network that we must dismantle. By any means necessary, we must dismantle it. And I think Prime Minister used a very good phrase this morning. He said sometimes when these firearms reach there, some people close their eyes. And he made a special request and a call to action to those individuals joining those individuals from SLASPA especially, who are joining the 15 recruits who are going to be joining the rank and files of the St. Lucia ANC Ports Authority, to not be one to cast a blind eye when these things, because if you do not have facilitators, or if, as they would say in Creole, the old adage, la pan situes la pan vole, and if we do not have facilitators allowing these things to come into this country, I guarantee you that would have been a much better and would have a much more peaceful society. And what I want to tell these individuals, you see ammunition, you see firearms, they have no discretion. They have no minds of their own. So when we think for a few dollars or for a few cents that we allow certain things to go by, or we allow certain things, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I want to make it extremely clear, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody in particular. But truth be told, we have a systemic problem in this country. And when this happens, this same ammunition can be used to take out or destroy or kill your mother, your father, your child. And I just want anybody, if there is anybody outside there who has any involvement or are part of the system and have any involvement or serve as a facilitator, to think of it. And sometimes when it hits home is only when we realize that, you know what, we really should not have done certain things. Now, whilst we work on trying to dismantle the systemic problem that we have, as a government, you would have seen today, again, what we did. We've increased the ranks and files of the police force by a further 80. You've seen we started a new course for prison officers, and we're going to be ensure that we place special emphasis on rehabilitation with these prison officers. The St. Lucia ANC Port authorities will be receiving 15 recruits to join their ranks and file as well. Even I think the city constabulary will also be increasing their numbers. So we've given, as a government, our job is to provide policy direction and to give resources to the agencies responsible for going out there and execute or administer these policies. We've done so much for the police, and this morning I said, I think the Prime Minister actually speaks police jargon now because of the numerous interventions that we've done for the police and for the Royal St. Lucia Police Force in terms of provision of resources. We continue to provide them with all the things that they ask us. It is now their responsibility to go out there and play their part. However, there is also a very concerning element that we have to deal with. We have a situation where the judiciary has a responsibility to play in all of this. And as much as we respect, we recognize and we understand the importance of the judiciary, when a government decides to go to Parliament and take any sort of legislative action, it is because we believe it is in the public interest, and that becomes public policy. A judiciary has a responsibility to ensure that what happens in the courtroom aligns with the action that we take in the halls of Parliament. Sometimes it is not always the case. Now, as to whether we had a situation, I think, in Soufrière, not too long ago, over the weekend or last week, I think somebody would have been arrested. This person would have been arrested for murder. This person was brought to the court not too long before they were arrested for a similar gun-related offense. Now, whether or not it is on the part of those individuals charged with the prosecution, the Crown Prosecution Unit, I'm not sure. Whether they probably did not put any objection to bail, or whether it's a situation where maybe they put an objection, but the lawyers did a better job and ensured that these individuals got bail, or for some technical reason somebody got bail. But I believe that all of us have, as I said, we respect the independence of the judiciary, but I think it is important that we make mention that as policymakers, when we go to the halls of parliament to take decisions, is because we realize that there are gaps. And it is our hope that when we take certain decisions, like increasing penalties for firearm and firearm-related offenses, it is our hope that those people charged with administering and executing, that whatever decisions they take are aligned with the direction, the policy direction of this government. So we realize that there are several gaps. And as I've said, we are committed as a government, as a people, this administration, especially with the Prime Minister that we have at the helm, we are committed and dedicated to restoring citizenry safety in this country. We don't expect this thing to happen. Where we are now, the stage where we are at now, is not somewhere that we got to overnight. We don't expect to get out of there by dawn either. However, we're taking several steps. You would have heard this morning again that this government is a government that has invested the most in terms of social interventions. That is to be able to give people an avenue. Yeah? We give you an alternate route, so you do not have to fall into the cracks and say that, I do not know where I get in a job, the system not checking for me. We've ensured for Youth Economy Agency that you do not have all the administrative red tape and hurdles that you get in the system, or what we refer to as the system. And as a government, we continue to put in place certain things, and so we continue to take certain interventions. We tend to put certain intervention methods in place to ensure that individuals have a real chance at life, that crime is not the way, and we ensure that we create detours. Some people deliberately refuse to benefit from some of the detours that we put there. And when they do that, and when Prime Minister said that thing about people tell you about the system failed them, when I don't think that the system fails John Rose, puts a gun in your hand and asks you to shoot somebody in the head. And we understand that there are certain gaps, and we must do what we can to try to help bridge these gaps. However, we continue to do that as a government, but the people have a responsibility. This morning I was extremely happy. I was extremely happy because I saw, for the first time I attended a ceremony, and I saw the partnership from the Chamber of Commerce. I think that was commendable, and I applauded them. When I spoke and I gave my brief remarks, I applauded them because we embrace the idea of we must tackle crime from a whole of society approach. We must tackle crime and ensure that everybody becomes partners in the fight against crime, and not just leave the responsibility to the police and the government, because crime affects more than just the police and the government. So I commend Mr. Ross and his team this morning, I think Mr. Ross Gardner and his team this morning from the Chamber of Commerce for the donation that they made to the police. I know that will go a long way, and I want to encourage other stakeholders, other partners, to come on board, be part of the solution. Prime Minister has put an open invitation to anyone who has any idea, who wants to make any sort of donation, who has any plan. And we are willing to, it doesn't matter if you're opposition, if you're government, if you're NGO, we're willing to look how much work we've been doing with the Ubuntu organization in Vieux-Fort in terms of violent interruption. We've been able to provide them with financial support. They used to get the support from USAID. When the stop program order happened from Trump, what did we do as a government? We continue providing them with the support that they needed so that they now can continue with these programs, because we realize the importance of programs such as the Violent Interrupter program. These are where we have individuals who go into the public, go into Vieux-Fort, and we've seen the results in Vieux-Fort. We've seen that the programs are actually working. As we speak, from my ministry standpoint, some time ago I told you that we were going to be hiring a research officer. We mentioned that at the budget as well, for the crime prevention unit, so that we can actually get going. I can tell you today that the crime prevention, the research officer under the crime prevention unit has been employed. I can give you his name. His name is Dr. Montel Felix. He's a former police officer, PhD in crime prevention. He studied in Taiwan and is back here. And we're more than happy to have him as part of the team from Home Affairs. So we're actually making some headway, but I want to also encourage the public to continue to work with the police, to continue to support the police in their efforts, because as I've said earlier, it would require all of us, to put our hands on the ship to get it going. We cannot do it alone, and we accept that. As a government, we accept that we won't be able to do it by ourselves. However, we encourage the public to continue to work with us so that we can get to that stage where we have a peaceful and tranquil society, one that where individuals, when they walk in Castries or in Soufrière, in Vieux-Fort or in Mickwood, they have no reason to look behind them.
Any questions?
I have a question. Minister, I know that government is doing their best to curb the crime level, but do you think that we're gonna be effective against crime when a container of drugs was discovered and we have heard nothing about it? What about the guns that have been found at Slasper and we can barely get interviews, we barely hear anything coming out of those cases? We need to do better if we're gonna curb the level of crime that we're seeing. Because in criminal minds is that if they can get past with those container drugs, you give us a right to try and see what we're doing right now. Because most young people nowadays, they live on crime. Because I remember there was one time we went to one of the constituencies in Castries, and we were asking, as a reporter and a camera person, we were asking them what is the cause that you're involved in crime, and the answer was, that's the way of life. That's how we make a living. So if we can't crack down on those containers and guns coming in, if we can't target and bring down those who are in high authority, who are causing those crimes to drugs and guns to come in, are we really serious in really bringing down and working against crime?
Okay, let me just clear something, and I don't want to be mistaken here. I don't know that we have people in any, because when you make a statement, you say you have people in high offices or high level areas who may be facilitating. I want to stay away from that type of comment. What I will tell you is that we as a government, we will do everything that we can to ensure that those individuals who facilitate at any level, high, low, middle, at any level, that we're going to do our best to dismantle these operations. What we've realized is that the operations are very well organized, very well structured, and as I said, it is not a situation that just plagues St. Lucia. It is one, there was a conference in Trinidad last week where they brought several officers together so that we can build on our information sharing. Because what you see happening in Trinidad and in St. Lucia is just a microcosm of what happens in the wider world. And in the Caribbean, for instance, you get similar techniques being used when firearms are being smuggled into the country. And when we speak about the seizures, I know that most times, if not every time that a seizure is made, there is a press release coming out. So I do not know how you find it difficult to get interviews or anything of that sort. And I know that anytime that there is a seizure, especially of some amount of quantum, there is a press release that follows. So Commissioner will tell you that today there was X, Y, and Z firearms were seized. And even this morning in his delivery, he mentioned where we are in terms of the number of firearms that we've seized, in terms of 4,000 plus rounds of ammunition that we've seized. So I do not know that this is difficult in order of getting an interview. I think my position and the position of this government is we will stop at nothing. At the end of the day, we have one objective. And that objective is to ensure that we make St. Lucia safe for St. Lucians. Primarily, first for St. Lucians and then for visitors. St. Lucia is where I live. This is where my children, my family, my mother, everybody lives. And I don't think that any of us as politicians go to bed sleeping well in the night, knowing full well the conditions. No wall can protect you from what is happening there, because we're not living in any sort of enclosure. Most ministers and their family members have no sort of CPOs working with them. I walk in the city just like everybody else. I walk through the town and villages just like everybody else. So I'm as vulnerable as everybody else. So we have a responsibility to make St. Lucia safe for every single citizen of St. Lucia. Sometimes it is sad that individuals will take this opportunity, as we would have seen on the weekend, and if they believe there is a soft underbelly and figure, okay, let me fire a few political punches because I've identified a soft underbelly in terms of the crime and the crime climate that we've seen now. And some people will take the opportunity to pounce on it and make it seem like, you know, politicians are responsible for what is happening. And it hurts me because when we record our successes, very seldom, if ever, do you hear the opposition speaking about the successes of the police, which is public. However, whenever a homicide happens, they're quick to call for them to take somebody's neck. And as I've said, I mean, I'm a lamb to the slaughter. And I will say it without fear of any contradiction. I have one job, to try to restore peace and tranquility in St. Lucia. I will do it to the best of my ability. I will not stop at nothing. I will continue to come here and give you updates as much as I can as to what is happening. I will continue to encourage the public to work with us. There are certain things that we are doing. You heard Commissioner mention that within the next month and a half, 2 months, we are going to be taking some short-term measures to ensure that we improve our efforts, and we're going to really go after those individuals involved in what is happening now. But we have said to Commissioner that we need more than just the short-term measures, because when we realize the short-term measures, they work for a certain period of time, and then when people believe that you become relaxed and whatnot, we see the heightened crime and criminality again, and it starts to pop up its ugly head. So what we're going to do is, but we have to do something now. We must do, and we will do something. I cannot tell you, because just everyone is watching the news. But you will see and you will feel what is going to be happening in the next few days. And this is not to instill fear in anybody, but we have to send a message out to those individuals involved in criminality that we are not going to just stand or just lay dead and allow you to take over the country. We will not. We will give the police our full support. We will give them resources, and they have our full backing. And I've always said, when the police do bad, I come out and I say that they're not doing well. When I'm not happy for what the work that the police is doing, if I believe they act in a way that is unprofessional, I call them out and I say that. However, when the time comes for me to tell the police, go out there and do what they need to do, say go out there and do what needs to be done whenever you operate within the parameters of the law. And that's why I also call on the judiciary to ensure that they give the police the support that they need when they do these arrests, because it makes no sense for the police to be working day in, day out, and when they finally make an arrest, that the same individuals are the arrest within the next day or 2 days. You know, crime has almost become affordable in this country. You know, people literally put their money on the side for in case they get caught, and that should never be allowed to happen in this country. Never. When individuals, people should, I should not say be afraid, everyone should know that when they engage in criminality, every decision, there are repercussions for it. There are consequences for the decisions that we make. And when grown men and grown women decide to go to take a certain course, there are repercussions for taking a particular course. And I say that without fear of contradiction. We will not stop at anything. We will do everything within our power to ensure that we bring the situation to rest. And not just in the short term. As I've spoken to the research officer, he has a responsibility to start working with the other organizations to ensure that in the long term, that we too can put a strategy that will cover years to come.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Before you leave, just